Okay, hello everyone. This is Sharonda, and this is my podcast and YouTube channel, Magic Mind Medium. So we're going to go ahead and get into the spiritual subject for today. All right. But before I proceed, I want to say that this YouTube channel and podcast is for entertainment, educational, informational, and sometimes educational purposes. It just depends on which podcast episode you may listen to. All right. So the topic that I'm going to speak about is soul ties and strongholds. Will possibly be the second or even the third time that I'm speaking about this. I first heard this term coin on Facebook, and I never heard of it before. So I began to do some research online, and so I'm going to present that now. What is a soul tie? It says a soul tie is a spiritual or emotional connection between two people that can be healthy or unhealthy. Soul ties can involve physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual aspects. So, again, it goes on to mention that they are spiritual agreements between two people, but between people to meet in this world and learn from each other. They can be romantic or platonic, or they can last for weeks or decades. Signs that you have a soul tie: feeling a deep, unexplained connection to someone, having strong emotions like love, empathy, or obsession, finding it hard to move on from a past relationship, communicating easily and comfortably with someone. And I would say that that would be a soul tie as well when you there's a familiarity with certain types of people or certain spirits. All right, so it says there are different types of soul ties. You have they can be physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. Physical involves physical contact, such as sexual intimacy. Emotional involves intense feelings of attachment. Mental involves close intellectual connections. Spiritual involves a deep connection to one another's spirituality or religious beliefs. Is what it mentions. So I'm going to go into how will you break a soul tie or a stronghold, because oftentimes I think it can be misconstrued when we are when something is lacking or we're feeling inadequate about something in our life, one versus the next, right? All right. My definition I have here is a soul tie is imprints from those whom you've had a sexual encounter with or some type of physical encounter with. Um, it also can involve emotional attachment, someone you have a commonality with, a special interest group, even. And I think oftentimes when it becomes obsessive or what have you, it can be misconstrued as a sexual soul tie, which can be a bit creepy. So as I mentioned to my son about voyeurism, because I oftentimes talk to him about spiritual things. Voyeurism will be it's basically when someone takes on this spiritual, if you look it up, because I looked it up earlier today, you take on this, it's like a spiritual sense, and it's like, as defined, voyeurism is when someone looks at someone or surveillance someone with their clothes off, which is kind of creepy. Um, I'm not going to get into all of that because I'm not a psychologist, although I may feel as though am a psychologist, self-proclaimed parapsychologist. Um, so I guess is the reason why I'm doing this episode or speaking on this spiritual subject is to bring some sense of clarity between the two. Because oftentimes we can get certain energy spaces confused. Like a voyeurist, someone who may be have a voyeurism type of spirit or take on that impression. It could very well be their intuition, but I'm not going to sit here and say that that is the case all the time, right? That's why you have someone who is a parapsychologist or a psychologist who can determine the differentiate, right? Okay. So the soul ties and strongholds in the sense that I am referencing to, because I do believe you can have that in this physical life experience. I also feel as though someone who has transitioned over, right? I had an encounter, a couple of encounters of someone that I know who is no longer in this physical existence, who I feel that comes around not all the time, but at certain times. And I feel as though this is a way of honing my intuition about certain characters and personality types is what I feel. Okay. Um, so if you may encounter something such as that, I do believe that that residual energy from will present itself, right? Um, Now we're going to speak about incubus and succubus, the sex demons. So incubus is a male demon that seeks to have sexual intercourse with sleeping women, while succubus is a female equivalent. Um, Now I have spoken on the incubus and the succubus and Lilith in visual presentations before. I honestly feel as though when we have some innate um, when we're not comfortable with expressing ourselves, particularly when we are bottled with our feelings and emotions, oftentimes these things are depicted in our physical manifestation, if that makes sense to anybody. So, say for instance, if you're someone who hasn't come to terms with your body or how you are viewed or perceived or your feelings and your emotions and your attachments, um, these demonic like features or demonic like characters or figures, I should say, will be depicted in your environment. It will manifest itself physically, if that makes sense to the body. So I think such as succubus and incubus and such as that. And how do I know these things? Because these things became apparent to me upon puberty. And I began to research things, look things up, and going, as we all mostly go through puberty, and you begin to have all these thoughts, these emotions and feelings, and things of that nature. So I honestly feel as though that is what that is. That essentially is what that is. Lilith, I've from previous research, Lilith, I feel, based on the research I've done, is a sex demon as told that was married to Adam prior to his union or marriage or pairing or partnership with Eve. I'm going to say that I feel Lilith was a demonic spirit because I do know that demonic spirits are real. They are real. Um, being going through puberty, a preteen, you will be visited by these, and I'm talking about in the spiritual sense, and you'll be able to detect it in others. I think this is God honing your intuition and your ability to detect certain types of energies, even in the physical or even in human beings, and by way of spirit. So it's like God giving you a precognition or premeditation about spirit. Is to hone your intuition, is what I feel. Um, some people may beg to differ, but that's just my synopsis. A time ago when I was about 17 years old, maybe 16 in high school, I was asked in class what did I want it to be in terms of a career, job, or what have you. Well, I have said I want it to be many of things, but I mentioned to um, the person that I wanted to be a psychologist, and I think because I had that interest and wanted to be that, some things presented to me as to what exactly being a psychologist means and how things are viewed in terms of being a psychologist versus any other spirit related job, field, or spiritual duty. So, again, get into soul ties and strongholds. Um, I think when you have had multiple partners or been promiscuous, some of those imprints can be left with you spiritually, whether you think about them or not. And as I've gotten older, I feel as though um, it's to hone your intuition, like you'll begin to know spirit. Do you have to have a sexual relationship with someone um, in order for their imprints to be left with you to where you would know character type and whatnot? No, no, because that's what Satan would have you feeling, that you will have to have a sexual encounter with someone in order to take on their impression or take on the knowledge and the know-how of them. You do not have to have a sexual relationship. Okay, I think it's to hone your intuition once again about certain types. Despite of what comes out of their mouth, you will know. You will know what you know what you know. That's what I feel. And this is the test. I feel as though this is how God tests us. Um, and make some things apparent to us and make us aware of some things despite of what is being conveyed or what is being said. You know, low blows about what you look like, how you think, how you talk, where you live, what you drive, hair texture, color, um, complexion, gender, whatever the case may be. These are energies. And so once you've been around long enough, you'll begin to detect certain energy spaces and spirits, right? These spirits happens in cycles. The same spirits that you see before you today was the same spirits that was 1,000, 2,000 years ago plus. Today ain't no different. You know, they may manifest in a different form or a different format, but it's the same energy space. And once you have been around long enough, you can detect Satan in his tricks. I'm also going to stress that I personally believe that God and Satan is one and the same. I think it's a testament as to what do you think this is. You know, some people may beg to differ. At one point in time in my life, I felt as though I was an atheist, um, because a lot of the things that was gravitating to me was not favorable in my sense of the matter. And I had to do some soul searching within myself to see, okay, what it is that I can change about myself. So I find myself oftentimes reinventing myself, convening myself, looking within introspectively until I got into a point in time where it says, you know what, I'm not perfect, no one is, and begin to take note of things despite of or what have you. And I started to reach out into spirituality more, metaphysics, Scientology, different belief systems and what have you. And that's why I consider myself to be a spiritualist because I don't want to put a label on exactly what it is. Like you begin to see things in a different sense of the matter, I feel, being a spiritualist. So again, strong ties, strongholds. You don't necessarily have to, again, have a sexual encounter or sexual relationship with someone to have a soul tie. I think oftentimes that can be misconstrued, right? But I do feel as though it can be in the opposite where someone may tell you otherwise and then they can deny it, right? So that's when God will, hone your intuition to where, okay, come on, they're playing games. This is what it is. So saying that to say, why am I speaking on this subject right now? Well, I think it's relevant and it's important because we know that some things are about to manifest within the next couple of weeks. Um, and it will give an explanation as to why some people are so heartfelt and driven by a narrative or, to get a dialogue going about certain feelings and emotions and characteristics and who you are as an individual is the point. So you really have to be mindful as such. All right, so I'm trying to make this at least 20 minutes and we are at 16 minutes now. The next thing I want to speak about is love spells. So how would you know if you are under a love spell versus a soul tie that is non-sexual? Well, me being having the background in healthcare at the capacity of a licensed practical nurse, um, sometimes I think you can be geared towards somebody, and it's not my place to investigate because I do respect my scope of practice as a LPN. But I think sometimes you can be pulled in the spirit when there may be a commonality or something just a little bit off or not right with the individual. But as I mentioned, that's not my place to even try to figure out. So it's your intuition, is what I want to say in some cases, in some situations. So a love spell, um, let's pull up some information off this website and I'm going to read it verbatim. So it says love spells involve the use of black magic and the help of supernatural forces of nature to get people to be attracted to you. This is a practice that has been practiced for a long time, being passed from generation to generation. There are love spells that do work while others fail to work. However, for a spell not to work, there has to have been something wrong before, during, or after the spell was cast. So, do you believe in love spells? Well, I'm going to tell you, love spells do work. I myself have never casted a love spell on someone because I'm the type of person, if it's meant to be, it will be. So, I'm not that type of person that would partake in it. I think a lot of times it's done for control. Love will be the vessel or the reasoning to do it, but ultimately it's control. And as I mentioned before, you have to be very aware as to Satan and his tricks, right? Because we're calling it a love spell, but ultimately it's for control. So it goes on. Is a question here, says, do love spells work? Yes, they do. They have been proved since many spell casters, such as, I'm not going to go into all of that, that love spells do work. I do believe they work. And how you would know, just going to go around and mentions about mood changes. Now, I had this to happen with me where mood changes is like an OCD or obsessive compulsive or compulsion towards someone that you really don't have that physical compatibility, mental compatibility, or even attraction to. Dreams. Oh, yes, of course, dreams as well. Um, I'm going to tell you that I feel as though it works. And it may come across in a sexual sense, but you have to sit back and say, okay, I know I don't have these feelings towards this person. Potentially, this person has these feelings towards me, but I know I don't possess these feelings. What is going on with this person? So I think in essence, when you're not able to connect one versus the other, you may react to something that may not be the truth, right? So it could very well be a situation where somebody may have something going on. Again, as I mentioned, I got the um, healthcare background, something biologically, physically, mentally, environmentally going on with the person. They looking for somebody to reach out. The one is there, more or less like a savior type. So that's how you would know. But my definition I have here is love spells is magic for sexual control and manipulation, um, or what have you. So I think sex is a mode of expression, or the word love is used as a mode of expression, but the ultimate key factor is control, is what I feel. Control. So I'm gonna go ahead and get ready to bring this to a close. How can you break a soul tie? How can you break a soul tie without infringing on someone's rights, freedoms, liberties, boundaries? Um, how can you break a soul tie? It says to break a soul tie, you should try to eliminate contact with the other person as much as possible, both in the real world and online. Is what it has mentions here. Um, so I'm going to go on another website, and I'm going to read off some information regarding how to break a soul tie. How to break a soul tie. To be honest with you, I'm going to read the information that's mentions on here about soul ties. And then we're going to proceed with how you can break a soul tie. So it says, signs you found a soul tie. It says, feeling energized, inspired after spending time with each other. Now, as I mentioned, I think soul ties can be as mentioned, it can be a healthy thing. It also can be unhealthy or unfavorable as well. Having a strong feeling of comfort and security in the other person's presence, being able to express yourself openly without fear of judgment and criticism, uh, mutual respect and admiration for each other, and feeling of unconditional love and acceptance, having a deep level of understanding and empathy for each other. So that there is in a healthy sense of the matter. It's nothing wrong with having connection with people, but when it gets to the point where you're infringing on people's space, boundaries, and rights, I think it becomes unhealthy. It says when a soul tie connection is unhealthy, it can be dangerous and destructive. People who are in an unhealthy soul tie relationship may experience intense jealousy, possessiveness, and codependence. Um, so here are some of the signs that you are in a unhealthy soul tie relationship. Feeling anxious when you're away from the other person for too long, becoming overly dependent on the other person for emotional support, having difficulty making decisions without the other person's input, feeling jealous or possessive of the other person, struggling to define your identity without them, feeling drained or exhausted after interacting with them, and experiencing a sense of emptiness when away from them. So these are unhealthy things in terms of a soul tie. It can be favorable, unfavorable, healthy, unhealthy. How to break an unhealthy soul tie connection. Number one, acknowledge the unhealthy soul tie connection. Reflect on your relationship. Identify the unhealthy, destructive behaviors and patterns and red flags. And number two, cut off contact with the other person, right? Um, so, if you feel as though this person has a stronghold on you, try removing social media and blocking their number as well. All right. Number three, surround yourself with positive people. Spend time connecting with positive people that can uplift you and lift your spirits, and seek relationship support. Um, is what it has mentioned here. Practice self-care. Engage in activities such as yoga, journaling, meditation to help relax and restore balance in your life. Number five, rely on a higher power. Connecting with higher power can help provide strength during difficult times and give you peace of mind knowing that you are not alone in the process of healing. Forgive yourself and the other person. One of the most important steps in breaking an unhealthy soul tie connection is forgiving yourself and the other person. So, oftentimes the soul tie is tied to emotions. So it could be, you know, positive emotions. It can also be anger and resentment, negative, dark, low vibrational emotions as well. All right. So I am going to conclude this episode of Magic Mind Medium speaking on soul ties and strongholds. Any questions, comments, or suggestions, you are more than welcome to comment below. Until then, have a safe and wonderful day.